Second half.
Second half. Second half, Peter Briggs says, and here we go. We're back live. Just waiting for David. David has just joined us. Fantastic. Well, the technical gremlins have disappeared. We'll back live from Budapest. I think the last thing I heard, sorry, I think the weak link was my internet connection here, was Kochitova and how Larvik might exploit that. The fact that they change her.
Yeah.
You, Tom, you've just said you give Larvik, in the end, a 3 or 4 goal advantage. Just to kind of think we kind of wrap it up here with Larvik Dynamo. Peter, how do you see that match panning out?
I see Larvik winning, obviously, and well, if Dynamo are really, if they succeed with their backcourt players, they may keep the match tight and get away with a narrow defeat. But if the match backcourt player starts failing, start throwing balls away, start missing shots, then the counter attacks from Larvik will be steamrolling over Dynamo, and then I fear on the behalf of Dynamo that a defeat at maybe 8 or 10 goals may be the outcome.
Okay. Nemanja, who goes to the final? Oh, good. That's the Budapest weak link here, taking its toll. David, who goes to the final?
The Budapest weak link, I love it.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, David. Seems to be some dodgy internet in Germany as well.
Can I just say that normally I would agree with Peter if the backcourt division is not, because I know you want to wrap up this game.
Yeah.
If the Dynamo backcourt division is not shooting, if this was a home game or a two-legged affair, I would agree with Peter. Larvik would absolutely steamroll them and will keep going. Now, I don't know whether they will think about the following day. If they're 3-4 goals up with about 10 minutes to go, will they absolutely steamroll them, or will they conserve some power for the next day? Don't forget, last year we saw it on the Sunday. There certainly wasn't the same power in all the teams after the Saturday's game. So, you know, if you are ahead and if you're doing okay, will you conserve a little bit of energy, but not do a Barcelona on it, if you know what I mean, where you throw the game away? Does it, you know, you got to balance both.
That's a balance, and that's also the balance Larvik.
Yeah.
So they will at least have to wait until the last 10 minutes or something to slow everything down, to relax it anyway, if they don't want to make exactly a Barcelona.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a warning signal for anyone.
But I think as well, the game. I think the game will be won the first 5 to 10 minutes, basically. If Larvik go ahead at the beginning, they'll take control of the game, and I don't think they'll have to. They will, as Peter says, control it near the end, maybe even slow it down. They only need to win by a couple of goals. That will be enough for them to get into the final and save their energy for the last day, because no matter who they play against, if they win, no matter who they play against, it's going to be a very tough final.
Yeah.
David, if I just jump in from a technical point of view, I think when you had your camera switched off, it worked much better from a sound point of view. I think it was much clearer.
Okay.
You can see it twice again here.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, you look.
Is that better now? Yeah.
No, you look great. You look great. It's not about all the technique. Yeah.
There's something in the name. There's something in the name Thomas that's really evil.
Now we can see you perfect. Well, guys, let's move to this. Let's move to the second semi-final. Let's have a look at Budućnost Vardar. Well, last year I think in the end it was a 6-goal win or so for Budućnost. Was it not? It was not that clear. How many goals actually?
No, it went into extra time, didn't it?
But it did went into extra time. No, sorry, absolutely. It was the final I mistook that with. It did went into extra time, and
I think you're right. What you're thinking, Thomas, is at the end of the first half, I think it was something like a 6 or 7 goal advantage for Budućnost, if I remember correctly, and Vardar came back and drew the game, and then it went into extra time and Budućnost won it.
So what do you expect this? What do you expect on Saturday?
Well, I mean, the funny thing about it is that the Budućnost team is almost identical, except for Bulatovic coming back except for Mladenovic coming back. What a stupid thing to say. I mean, it's like Messi joining Real Madrid or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like you suddenly improve about 50% having her in your team. She's a class act. But they're very similar, and they play very similarly. You know. And but Vardar is a better team than last season, and I don't think anybody gave them a chance last year against Budućnost, and yet they took them to extra time and eventually lost. And I think that this team this year is much better than the team last year. Having said that, if we go pound for pound or player for player across the Budućnost team, they have a longer bench, which in terms of the tournament will be important. But in terms of their starting 7, I would say they are just ahead of Vardar. However, Thomas, I have a...
There's always an however, isn't there? There's always...
I have a sneaky feeling that Vardar are going to do it. And I'll tell you why. Because it always happens in a season that one team beats the other team all the time, or they draw, or whatever it is. They're always better than them. And Budućnost has been better than Vardar all season. And when the chips are down, the other team that's been losing all season or hasn't looked their best suddenly does the business. And Vardar is just coming good at the right time. So I have a little sneaker, just a funny little feeling in my water, Thomas. And yeah, funny little feeling.
David, what about your feelings? It's the time right for Vardar on Saturday to beat Budućnost?
That was a short answer, wasn't it, Thomas?
That's all right. I'll pass this question straight on to Peter.
Well, if Björn Patson was with us now, this would probably be the time where he would say that this semi-final will be won by the team which has scored most goals at the end. Now he's not here, so I would say that pretty much sums up. I don't know the heck of how that match would turn out, because I see it as so equal as I've probably seen any semi-final or final game at a Final Four ever. I would, if I'm put under very hard pressure, and I have a feeling that I am, now that we're only 3 people discussing at the moment, it seems, that then maybe I would give a slight edge to Budućnost, but don't make me give it more than 52 to 54% in favor of Budućnost. I'm really impressed what Vardar has done lately, and if you see the curve, the way the teams have developed in shape and in result and performances, it has been going this way up for Vardar lately. Maybe it's a coincidence, and I'm not going to put on my
mention the Danish guy.
But it might. Some people might say that it has something to do with the arrival of a certain Jan Pytlik. Anyway, they have done brilliantly lately, and I remember us sitting here in the previous, or some of us in the previous hangout, and at least 50% of us did not expect Vardar to make it past Björn to the Final Four. They did, and who can say that they are not going to take the next step into the final? Also, I'm definitely not going to put it past them, and I see this as a very, very equal and hard predictable semi-final. But if I'm put under hard pressure, I would say a slight edge to Budućnost.
Back.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Can you hear me, Thomas?
Yeah, fantastic. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say I would agree as well with Peter, and I would agree with Peter that a little nudge ahead for Budućnost. And looking at Niago, 92 goals up to now in the Champions League. Brilliant. And on the other side, Mladenovic, I mean, with these 2 players alone, they have some fantastic advantage in the back with back shooters. I would have to say Budućnost a little bit ahead of Vardar.
Nemanja, you're obviously following Budućnost quite closely. And I think you already had your little tactics book at one of the last hangouts. You could exactly tell how they're going to play against Vardar. What kind of tactics are you going to? Do you think that they're going to employ on Saturday?
Well, Budućnost, there are not many unknowns, you know, about Budućnost. They're going to play their game. Speaking of that, they do have players and the means to do it in comparison to the last season when the team was fairly inexperienced for Final Four finals. Budućnost, as it is right now, is an incredibly strong and incredibly experienced team with 7 players that already won the Women's Champions League in 2012. But one problem remains that the injury recovery is still in process for them. They have the injury-stricken season throughout, and there's still problems with the left wing. Biljana Pavicevic just joined training a few days ago, so there aren't going to be much rotation on the wings, and therefore the transitional defense and the semi-counter is going to suffer. Speaking of that, to be able to play against Larvik, you do have to spring tactical surprises from time to time, and I think that Dragan Hadžić is aware of that. Previously, when we spoke, he told me that he's trying to implement a plan B, basically, to what is unknown, to what people usually don't prepare when you talk about Budućnost. You usually expect the aggressive 6-0 defense that sits deep and doesn't allow any shots from the backcourt. But Dragan Hadžić told me that he's trying to implement a 5-1 defense, and that will aid the dynamics and maybe allow them to get to the ball much quicker and to get a few more attacks on their behalf. Speaking of the game itself, it is going to be a low-scoring game. It is going to be a tough game, and basically what Budućnost has to do is to limit creativity from the other side. Now, I've probably missed some of the previous talks about it because I've been absent for quite a while, but that's it from me, and I will continue. I don't want to hijack the whole topic.
Thomas, it's interesting that Nemanja mentions the 5-1 there, because I was, you know, sometimes I watch it as a coach. You know, I watch the games as a coach and not just as a commentator. And I'm looking, and I'm saying to myself, my God, every team is playing like a 6-0 defense. I mean, it's so obvious and so, I don't know, stale. Let me put it like that. You know. And the fact that a lot of women's handball is based on interplay and team play, I can't understand why no one has introduced a 3-2-1 or a 5-1. I was just saying that to myself only the other day, that no one is doing it, particularly against the likes of a Kochetkova. You know, I mean, if I was playing that, I would play a 5-1. Now, the Thüringer, if anybody remembers, against Larvik, tried to play a 5 with the man-to-man against Nordermörk, and then I think that somebody else tried to do it against Niagu, but trying to do it like that against Niagu is just, you're just wasting your time because she's so big and so strong and so fast. But I'm absolutely amazed at the whole way. Maybe they didn't need to do anything else against the teams they were playing, so they just played this 6-0 defense. You know, that of course moves a little deep sometimes. But it's actually quite stale, and I was wondering, it's interesting you say that, Nemanja, because I was thinking to myself, is anybody going to try this? You know, and particularly against somebody like Lekic. I think that somebody like Mehmedovic would be brilliant in a 5-1 pressing there, because she's so quick, you know, she's really quick on her feet. And I think, to be honest, Nemanja, if Budućnost are complaining that they've had injuries this season, I mean, boo-hoo. You know, I mean, they've got 2 backcourt players in every position. Bizdra, Knežević, Niagu, Despodovic, Buladovic, and what's her name? Dalbu. I mean, you know, where's my hanky for them? You know, I mean, they've had injuries. What are you talking about? You know, an injury is when your key player, like in Larvik, gets injured before the final. That's an injury. Not turning your ankle and your left winger is just going back to train. That's not an injury. That's just a normal run-of-the-mill something when you've got somebody like Mehmedovic who can play there anyway for 60 minutes, which she has done. You know, an injury is, God forbid, the poor girl goes down, you know, and she cannot even play the Final Four. And as for Lazovic, I think she's starting to come back, isn't she, from her ankle injury, which I'm not saying wasn't a bad one, but she's starting to come back. So Budućnost can't complain that they've had injuries. For God's sake, they've got the deepest bench and roster just about of all the women's teams in the Champions League. And if they're coming out with the excuse, oh, you know, we're not at our best because one of our left wingers turned our ankle in the... Yeah, come on. Nemanja, please tell me.
Peter, just picking up from that before Tom's little little monologue on injuries here, and defense variation. So, what is Peter? What do you think is Jan Pytlik's plan B against this Budućnost team? Because when you look at what he did at the Euro, and when he suddenly pulled out this seventh player tactics and attack with 7 players, is obviously a coach who's known for suddenly pulling something out of his hat that is probably not expected.
Well, now Pytlik isn't the head coach, isn't alone about the responsibility in Vardar, and even though he seems to have been able to get Kastratovic to buy many of his ideas, I think it will be very difficult for the two of them to agree to playing 7 against 6 in the final form. It would really be interesting to see them trying it out for instance, against Budućnost in the semi-final. Very interesting, but I doubt very much we'll see it unless there are 5 goals behind with a quarter of an hour left. So that will probably not be maybe a plan B or C if they get into that situation, but otherwise not. But it's an interesting point that Tom pointed out, the thing about the very, very conservative defense style we see in women's handball. Why the hell does, sorry, please excuse my French, but why don't coaches take more chances? I've not even seen an otherwise adventurous coach as Jan Pytlik trying something very adventurous in the defense. He does it in the attack. We saw that at EHF Euro in Hungary. But we don't see the defense. We see it from very few teams. We see this 6-0 defense and with very few variations. And I don't know why they can't. I don't think say that they should take anything from men's handball, but maybe some inspiration regarding changing defense formations could be interesting. We see a lot of that in men's handball. We saw a lot of interesting tactical innovations regarding defense formations in Qatar at the Men's World Championship. It would really be refreshing to see a bit of the same in women's handball. I think we could get some more interesting and more entertaining games.
Can I come in on this, Thomas?
Yeah, absolutely. You can always come in.
Great, okay. I agree with this thing about it would be very interesting to see some other defensive formations and not just a 6-0 all the time. I mean, the great thing for any attacking team is that you could have the same moves again and again because no matter which team you play against, if they all play 6-0, you're going to have the same thing which you play against. But if any team came out the weekend to play something like a 3-2-1 or a 5-1, the other team, the opponents, will have major problems because if you watch any of the videos, any of the games in the past few months, you'll always see a 6-0. Apart from that thing about coming out against Niago and man-marking Niago, which didn't work at all, I'd have to say it was a waste of time. She still scored 7-8 goals in that game, although she's been... What? Sorry?
Woman marking. You said one marking.
Yeah, sorry about that one, man. I just meant it as human person man. I meant human person man, meaning of man. Anyway, the man marking was still didn't work out. She still scored 7-8 goals. Yeah, I'm not letting him get it to me, Thomas. Don't worry about that. I've known him long enough in my life. The thing about it is, as I said, the attacking formations can still be the same, great. And if anybody comes out with something else, I mean, but when do they practice it? Who have they played against? Has anybody seen any of these teams in any of their own leagues playing something other than a 6-0 defence? I haven't heard or seen anything of it, unless they're doing something in the hall every day, training, and want to come out and do something totally different. I couldn't imagine they will. But you're right, it would be interesting to see something else.
Yes, but you have to take into consideration who you have in your team and who do you want to play at this point in your team. I'm completely in line with what Tom said, that positions have extremely good rotation and at least one backup for each position, and that really makes them not being able to whine about injuries and stuff. But regarding the game plan, Dragan Adic is not particularly fond of making rotations while he plays. He is not particularly fond of making positional rotations. because otherwise that would kill the way Lucius is playing. Because the way they're playing is to get the ball as fast as possible to the opposition half, and then start to build the backcourt action to score a goal. But the problem persists in the players that have to play in the defensive phase and using the 3-2-1. Can you imagine Katarina Bulatovic playing 3-2-1 defense? Not quite.
I can't even imagine her playing defense. You know what I mean? No.
That's one of the topics I wanted to discuss.
That's the worst. Can I just because we could get bogged down in the whole 6-0 or 3-2-1 or whatever else like that. The fact of the matter is, and here to me is going to be the key two battles in this entire weekend. A, Lazovic cannot defend. She is unbelievably bad in the right back position. And if Vardar doesn't play Klikovac in there against Niagu, if they play Klikovac against Niagu, my God, it's going to be amazing. I mean, it's just going to be incredible. It's going to be two beasts trying to kill each other, one trying to stop the other, one trying to get past. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. The second big battle is going to be Althaus, the German hairdresser, against Svijic on the line. And I think that is also going to be a wonderful battle. And then you can look at the artistic part, which is Lekic, Knežević, you know, who's the better center player. And, you know, you look at Penezic, who's been brilliant, and Bulatovic, two beautiful players playing against each other. Very nice, good wingers on both teams. I love Dembele, I love Mehmetovic. Radicevic is great, Petrovic is great. You know, the goalkeeper's Voltering. I don't know who they're going to go for in goal. Will they go for Suslina for the experience? Although Leno, I think, might have a little bit of the edge on her at the moment. But those two key battles could determine the game.
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, Tom. I think we've got Andrea Lekic following you, and she's just tweeting over. Got some new ideas. So.
Yep.
There you go.
Quite right, Andrea.
Yeah.
By the way, I noticed Andrea.
I'm coming up with more as we speak. From a coach's point of view, I mean, you know, you, David, you said you'd like to see something new. Final Four is not the place to try something new. Am I correct?
Exactly, you're right. I once again, I mean, if they were, I remember, I don't wish to compare them to Kiel, but I remember Alfred saying he had been training the 3-2-1 for nearly a year and a half before he started implementing it for a couple of minutes at each game. So if these teams were to play anything else but a 6-0, they would have had to start doing it in games a long time ago. And I haven't heard or seen anything else apart from a 6-0. So that's what's going to happen. Now, the battles are going to be one against one, as Tom said. And I agree with him definitely. Klikovac has to come on. Lazovic has to go off. And I think actually that Dan Pikelic does want this. He is the man that wanted this. And I think if they had have left Lazovic on the defense, that's where they were going to lose the game, one against one. Their problem will be that if they have to get back too quickly, then they might not get a chance to get her off the court quick enough. But that will be one of the main one against one in that position, definitely. Yeah, and I think Svijic, if she gets the ball in hand, it's a penalty or a goal. I have to take one of those players. Althaus as well, very, very strong, but not as good as Svijic.
Yes, but you also once again have to look at what would you like to play. What can you do with Klikovac offensively? Not much. Speaking of Svijic, I haven't seen a player in Vardar who can limit the possibility for Svijic to get the ball. You know, speaking of physicality. Althaus is a different kind of player. You know, she's a running player. She has become some sort of a defensive anchor to Vardar's defensive game, but not quite. You know, she will need a help of another player to stop Svijic if she does start to play the way she plays. And then possibilities open. One back is off. The second and the fifth player are probably going to be helping with Svijic, and then you have the opportunity in the wings, or you have the opportunity to backs. And then breaking up.
This is where I think that those two players are going to be key, because if you watch Svijic play, she tends towards the Niagu side. She blocks goal side for Niagu to be able to come inside, or to be able to go outside, as you say, outside too, and play it. If you have Althaus and Klikovac together as 2 and 3 there on that side, so you've got Penisic and Althaus in the centre block, with Penisic on the sort of the left side of the centre block and Althaus on the right. Althaus and Klikovac together are enough of a terrier and a deterrent to be able to put Svijic and Niago under pressure, so the ball is not so perfect. And that maybe is all that they need. That maybe is all that they need, because nobody else in there has got the power to be able to stop Svijic. Yeah, and as David says, if she gets the ball in hand. So the key is not to let her get the ball in hand. And this Althaus, I mean, Peter, you remember her, right? I mean, you must remember her from her time at Viborg.
Yes.
She is, I mean, she's got the nicest hairdo in the entire Champions League, as far as I'm concerned. But she's
the biggest collection of shoes.
Huh?
And the biggest collection of shoes.
Yeah, that's true, really. So, but she's a brilliant, she's a real fighter, isn't she?
Absolutely.
She's never say die.
So let's narrow this down to results, guys. Who do we see going for the top podium finish, and who has to be satisfied with a match for third place in this semi-final? No one wants to answer this question. Peter, come on, you start.
Just win by 2.
David goes
Budućnost win by 2, go into the final. Budućnost win by 2 against Vardar and go into the final against Larvik. That's what I'm saying. Put my head on the chopping block. Tom knows all about chopping blocks.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna put my head in the chopping block and say that there will be one team with a B in their name in the final. It's Budućnost or the Barder. No, Thomas, I can't quite put my finger on it. Why? I just have a little feeling for Vardar. I mean, there's no basis of logic for it. Budućnost in terms of who they have playing for them and everything else. But if Vardar get that top 7 that they have playing really well together, I think they just have a little. On the day, they might just have enough.
Yeah, well, if you're going for a tactical variety, you have to choose Vardar. But because the experience of losing the last year's match, you know how it went. You close down the Andrea Lekic by closing down the middle, and everything just collapses. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if the first few offensive moves that Vardar make go through wings, Radicevic, for example, because then you put the pressure from Lekic to the wings, and then you spread out the pressure.
Just like about narrowing it down to results, not another analysis.
Okay, this wasn't narrowing just quite, but I'm thinking Budućnost will win regardless, but it's certainly not going to be an easy game, and I wouldn't be surprised if they lose. It's just a 50-50 game. Budućnost play against Larvik in the final.
Okay, Peter?
Well, as I said, it's I'm very reluctant to point out a favorite here. It will, as I said, first I would go with 52-48% for Budućnost. So let me say results and a final result 25-23 for Budućnost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that was brave.
Well, so we have 3 potential finalists. Obviously, you're who?
You have 4 potential finalists.
Well, we got 4 potential. That's true. That's true, but no one tipped Dynamo to be in the final. I have.
No,
you only get a chance, but no one. Who wants this title the most? And I'm just going back to this Gro Hammerseng block and the badly, madly in caps. Do you guys think that the fact that they actually missed the Final Four, that they were not in Budapest last year, might give them also the edge in the final, or is it an entirely different game? Because Tom mentioned you mentioned the tiredness. Each of these teams, they have to play 60 tough minutes. So going for the title or not right now is an entirely different thing on Sunday.
Well, I'll keep this as short as an Irishman can keep something short.
Right.
The fact of the matter is that because Budućnost and Vardar play the second semi-final, they've less time to recover. The other fact of the matter is that almost all the coaches have a set 7, 8, 9 players, apart from Budućnost, who tend to bring in maybe a 10th or an 11th player. So you would think that Larvik, if they make it through the first semi-final, with the rest period and the kind of game that they play, if they have enough speed in their legs left for the second game, that they could wipe the floor with anybody in the second game. That's my feeling. If they still have the speed left in their legs, because I remember last year the girls coming towards the second half of that second game in all the games, you could really see the power was waning.
David, what would you say?
Yeah, that was very short, Tom. Yeah, very short. I have to say that. Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. He tries very hard. Yeah. To ask the question, I have to say I can't agree with asking the question. Who wants it most? If you ask any player, even those girls on the bench who are not going to play for Dinamo Sinara, they all want to win this title. There's nobody who would say, no, I don't want to win this title. They all want to win it. And it will be down, I agree with one thing with Tom, it will be down with which team has enough players to replace those 7, who give somebody a break for 5 minutes and they don't get 3 goals banged in against them while somebody's having a break. That would be the main thing. They all have their top 9 players, but who have they got on the bench to replace them? Sorry, Emma? Who have they got on the bench to replace them, to give some of these players a break, and who can do it over 2 days?
Emmanuel, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, exactly. I said that's where we get to the point of injured players. I'm not getting into whether this or that player is going to miss out. No, but the rotation is key, and Dragan Hadžić said it. Because if you have the rotation, you have the ability to rest players, and you have the ability to keep players fresh when you need them the most. It's simple as that. Speaking of who wants it the most, I think Budućnost wants it the most because it's a team of a concept, and the concept was set clearly after the final loss last year. Hadžić said to me, "This is the inexperienced team. We are building towards something, and that something is now. The time has come. They're accepting the role of favorites. For the first time, we see the affirmative reactions from Budućnost when we consider them favorites, even though they're and the media are used to a different kind of approach from them. And I think that they do want it the most, and they've worked a lot for it. And I think that this is going to be their year, but it's a lot of that depends on Larvik too."
Peter, back to my original question. Who do you see, very simply put, who you see topping the podium at the very end of this tournament?
Let's get one thing straight. This final will not be decided by motivation. Larvik's hunger has brought them far. It has probably brought them to the Final Four and played a great part in them going undefeated through to the Final Four. But when you are in a final, then difference in hunger and motivation doesn't play a part. Don't come here and tell me that all players in a final do not want that title, that trophy equally badly. So then other factors come into play when we agree that the motivation is the same on both sides. And there we can begin to talk about physical freshness and being tired and things like that. In fact, those factors can be decisive. And here, of course, it's also a question of courage by the trainer, by the coaches. Which coach has the courage to actually dare to give a key player a break in a crucial or critical moment in a match in order to rest her for the final minutes? Will we see much rotation? Will we see many substitutions in that final, which will probably be very, very close and very, very equal? Or will we see some tired first 7 players throughout the entire 60 minutes? That may be pretty decisive for the outcome.
Well, this has definitely not been the hangout of short answers, but definitely the hangout of in-depth analysis. There's some great praise for you guys coming from Twitter, for example, from Laura Agena. This EHF Hangout has become a tactical. Exciting. So,
Tom, can I just say something before you go? This is the women's. This is the women's MVM EHF Final 4 Hangout. We're 4 men. When have you ever asked a woman a question and got a short answer? We're playing our role.
I knew you would adapt to that role very well. So.
Tom, take your high heels off, will you please?
Yeah,
It was a pleasure talking to you. David and Tom, looking forward to seeing you in Budapest tomorrow.
Yeah. See you tomorrow morning.
Have a safe flight, and thanks for joining. Thank you.
Take care. See you then. Bye.